Ladies and gentlemen, Trump had some very unkind things to say about the homeless. People are homeless for a variety of different reasons. Yes, many of them are drug addicts. Some people, down on their luck, lost their job, couldn't get another job right away, ended up homeless. So it's a variety of reasons. Some people, it's for medical reasons. They were in over their head with medical problems and they ended up homeless. So it's for many, many reasons why people are homeless. So Trump did an interview in Japan, and many of you might remember back in June, he took a trip to Japan. And this came out in slate.com, July 2nd, 2019. Trump says homeless people are making cops sick. Walking the Beat in Cockamamie assessment of U.S. cities. Now, during this interview, Fox News Tucker Carlson was with him. And they were talking about how clean Japan was, in their city. Well, Carlson had made a comment of how filthy New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles were. And the cities have a major filth problem. Well, I blame the local politicians for that. Okay? If your city is filthy, you need to see who is running your city, your mayor, your city council. What are they doing to clean up the city? You know? And of course, they're not going to put the blame where it should belong at all. They're going to turn around and blame the homeless and this and that. Yeah, homeless people can be a nuisance out on the street. I've seen them out there. But I still blame the local politicians. These people died to get in office. And then when they're in office, they don't do much to really clean up the city. Very few of these mayors and governors and people in charge locally do too much of anything to make the situation better in many of these cities. But when it comes down to election time, then all of a sudden they want you to cast your vote for them while the city is still suffering. And boy, we know that more than anyone. In many of the urban areas, they do virtually nothing to change those areas at all. And they are highly neglected areas in the country and always have been for a long time. You can cross over to another section of the city where everybody don't look like those folks in the urban area, and those areas are much clean. They're cleaner because they use the tax dollars over there to keep those areas clean, but while they just willfully ignore areas where mostly black people live. It's a fact. I lived in an urban area growing up, and it's a fact. They purposely neglect those areas and don't do too much of anything to improve it. And forget about trying to have a business in the community that you live in. They just won't allow it. But they will allow Arabs, East Indians, Asians to come and set up shop all they want. But if you want a business, and even if you have good credit and never had any problems paying your bills, you can't get a loan. You can't. That's the way they got the system rigged up against us. So we can't get those things, but foreigners, they can. And that's by design. They want it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video.
someone going to the bathroom on the street, you don't see junkies.
It's very nice, isn't it?
Very different from our cities.
Yep. Well, some of our cities.
Some of our cities, but New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they've got a major problem with.
It's very sad.
With filth.
Very sad.
Why is that?
It's a phenomenon that started 2 years ago. It's disgraceful. I'm going to and I'm looking at it very seriously. We're doing some other things, as you probably noticed, like some of the very important things that we're doing now. But we're looking at it very seriously because you can't do that. You can't have what's happening where police officers are getting sick just by walking the beat. I mean, they're getting actually very sick. Where people are getting sick, where the people living there are living in hell too. Although some of them have mental problems where they don't even know they're living that way. In fact, perhaps they like living that way. They can't do that. We cannot ruin our cities. And you have people that work in those cities. They work in office buildings, and to get into the building, they have to walk through a scene that nobody would have believed possible 3 years ago. And this is the liberal establishment. This is what I'm fighting. I don't know if they're afraid of votes. I don't know if they really believe that this should be taking place. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And we may be... I had a situation when I first became president. We had certain areas of Washington, D.C. where that was starting to happen. And I ended it very quickly. I said, you can't do that. When we have leaders of the world coming in to see the President of the United States and they're riding down a highway, they can't be looking at that. I really believe that it hurts our country. They can't be looking at scenes like you see in Los Angeles and San Francisco. San Francisco, I own property in San Francisco, so I don't care, except it was so beautiful. And now areas that you used to think as being, really something very special, you take a look at what's going on with San Francisco. It's terrible. So we're looking at it very seriously. We may intercede. We may do something to get that whole thing cleaned up. It's inappropriate. Now, we have to take the people and do something. We have to do something.
Right.
And, we're really not very equipped as a government to be doing that kind of work. That's not really the kind of work that the government probably should be doing. We've never had this in our lives before in our country. And it's not only those few cities, it's a couple of other cities
also.
Of cities. At the same time, most of our cities are doing great. But if you look at some of these, they're usually sanctuary cities run by very liberal people, and the states are run by very liberal people. But the thing that nobody can figure out is, do these governors or mayors, do they really think this is a positive? Do they really think this is okay? Because it's not. It's destroying their city. And it's destroying a whole way of life. And it's not our country. It's not what our country is all about.
We have still more of that interview with the president. We asked him later in that hour about UFOs. We'll touch.
Trump is full of shit. And here's why. First of all, when I was growing up in the city of Philadelphia, y'all, there were a lot of homeless people, even as a child. And I remember, like the war veterans would be on the streets all over the place. On top of that, you would have all these mentally ill people, drug addicts. I've seen homelessness my whole life. This is not a phenomenon that happened 2 years ago. In fact, now a lot of the junkies on the streets that you're looking at are opioid addicts, and many of them are homeless. They come from families that don't want to deal with them anymore because of their drug problems. And you have many situations, some of these people that are homeless got children. They got kids. And that is nothing new either. I remember many stories growing up of people living in cars with their children, and that stuff is still happening. There's always been a homeless problem in America, and America has this thing about getting angry at people that are downtrodden, that are poor, that are struggling. They get mad at people like that. They have a lot of disdain. Homelessness, in fact, it's so bad in this country, you get punished for even helping homeless people. There are stories out here of people trying to feed homeless people, trying to give them clothes, give them money, or I was watching a video about 2, 3 months ago of this black woman, and she was going out there and washing their hair and helping them take showers and everything. Every time someone tries to help the homeless, you get in trouble. You can get fined for helping the homeless in this country. And I know I'm not the only one who have heard these stories. You give out blankets. People would go on campaigns to give out blankets to the homeless, and they would get slapped with a citation or heavily fined for helping the homeless. So America created this monster. But that's the way I see it. This monster came from America. But politicians will do just what Trump does. You know, when you got this homeless situation out on the streets, it's everybody's fault except for theirs. But wait a minute, aren't you the ones that are the leaders? And you've let this go on for years. This is not a 2-year phenomenon. I mean, this has gone on for many years. Long before I came to this earth, there were homeless people, even then. So I definitely don't agree with Trump. His assessment of homelessness is wow. Then again, it kind of fits with everything else about Trump. Maybe I'm wrong about that, huh? But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.